What's up? Welcome. It is 2024, and this is a best of. I'm going to start doing these. And this is where you guys get to judge me based on my tastes. I hope not to spend too much time on these lists, so that way you can kind of consume them in little blurbs. But I do like celebrating things that were amazing, and I watch a lot of TV and a lot of movies. And I'm going to continue to do that as I'm making these lists. But I can tell you that this seems like a category that, like how many could you possibly watch to make a top 10, including shows that I stopped watching. I think I watched about 40 animated TV series, at least an episode of. There was something that Netflix had that I watched the first. I was like, no, this is not for me. I actually think I left the episode. I think it's like 15 minutes into it. I was like, this isn't funny at all. I can't even remember what it was. I think it had something to do with pirates, maybe, but it was awful, so I left it. But yes, so I somehow whittled my list down to 10. Just as a point of reference, just in case you're like, what did you get? What was last year? Last year I gave it to Solar Opposites. So will Solar Opposites win again? Will it be on my list? You'll just have to wait and see. All right, kicking off, everybody always does honorable mentions, so I want to do a couple honorable mentions here of some shows that I struggled the most with leaving off of my top 10 list. I won't say too much about them. Animaniacs from Hulu. I really wanted it to be on here because it was the final season of Animaniacs. I don't know why we only had 3 seasons of a revival at Hulu, but we did. It's very sad. Young Love on Max is, again, I had struggled to leave that off. Invincible on Amazon, sorry, it didn't make the list. Um, and without further ado, number 10 is Strange Planet from Apple Plus. When I was trying to figure out that 10th spot, I basically, it was between the 3 honorable mentions and this, and I was just like, you know what? This one had such clever writing, and I know it's adapted from a comic book series and they're using a lot of the same themes, but I was just so floored by their interpretations of how we live our life and then applying that to an alien race that's like a little bit different than the way that we are, and finding ways of saying things and interpreting the way we act as humans, but then showing it through another race. I just conceptually, it's not hilarious, but it's a very interesting show, and I'm very glad I've watched it. Uh, Gratitude. Number 9 on my list is Fired on Mars. This is on Max. Luke Wilson played a character who was bad at being a graphic designer on Mars, I guess, or they didn't need him. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, he gets fired on Mars, and it's sort of about the journey that he goes on after that, the other jobs that they end up having to fight, because he's on Mars, he can't go anywhere. Like, where do you go once you're fired on Mars? Just it's they're not going to waste money on one spaceship just to send one dude home. So he's still up there. He's got to do some other things, but um, yeah, it was such an interesting and quirky little show. I believe this was rotoscoped, so yeah, it's maybe something you didn't hear of, or you didn't catch, or you didn't know existed, but check it out. It's there for your perusal. Number 8. I was trying to do shows with entirely audio description, so this is a little bit of a caveat. This show does not entirely have audio description, um, and but it does sort of. This is South Park, which has still, after like 25 years, still has biting commentary to offer. Whether you are willing to sit through the episodes when they air live on Comedy Central without audio description, like I do, because I've been watching South Park since season 1. So I refuse to let blindness stop me from watching some of the things and doing some of the things that I liked, like watching South Park, or the accessible audio described specials that are being run on Paramount Plus. So if you're all about audio description, make sure you check out the specials that Paramount Plus had. I do believe they did 2 this year, maybe 3, at least 2. This last one was certainly something. Um, but yeah, South Park makes the cut.
Mm.
Coming in at number 7 is last year's winner, Solar Opposites. They did go through a cast change. It's on Hulu. It's in its 4th season, I believe. They did go through a cast change because of Justin Roiland. Just like Rick and Morty, these were 2 shows that both had to come back this season with a new voice cast. And between listening to Rick and Morty and listening to people pretending to sound like those characters versus uh actually just what Solar Opposites did, which was just shoot him with a ray gun and just have a completely different voice. I actually enjoyed this better. I enjoyed this because there's something that's very uncanny about listening to the other. It's a little like listening to somebody doing a Christopher Walken impersonation instead of actually listening to Christopher Walken. It's like you know it's an impersonation, you know it's not Christopher Walken. There's something that's just not quite right. And it's a little unnerving. I'm very impressed with the guys who are doing Rick and Morty, but at the same time, it's it's obviously not Justin Roiland. And I love that the team behind Solar Opposites just decided, screw it. We're not gonna try. We're just gonna Dan Stevens is now the voice. Okay. That's just how it is. And it brought a new flavor to the show. Um it even pulls it a little bit further away from feeling like it's just Rick and Morty 2.0. So, because now it doesn't have the same voice actor. I think it was a very smart decision. Uh, this season, honestly, if we're being a little honest, they had an episode where the characters were invisible and they couldn't see anything. They were bumping around, and I wasn't entirely here for the making fun of the blindness and the tripping and the falling and the breaking things and stumbling around like idiots. But they kind of justified it by the fact that they couldn't even see their own bodies, like because they were totally invisible, so they couldn't see themselves. It was a little weird for me. I just didn't want to give it the number 1 spot again. It was number 1 last year. I didn't need it 2 years in a row on my list. So, but I will always continue to watch it. The stuff that goes on inside the wall alone deserves its own show. And then on top of that, we got a segment of Silver Cops, which was great. So yeah, this is definitely one that is an all time favorite of mine right now. Number 6, The Legend of Vox Machina, which is on Amazon. Yes, I put this above Invincible. Yes, I like this more than Invincible. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, those of you who are like Invincible fans, and you're like, but my show's better. Legend of Vox Machina manages to be both hilarious and tell a great story. And I don't even like Dungeons and Dragons. But between this and Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, I'm thinking, did I miss out on something in my lifetime? Should I have been playing D&D? I used to, my only other contact with D&D was that awful movie from like 2000 with Marlon Wayans. So maybe, maybe I'm missing out on something here. So Vox Machina is great, and I'm glad that Amazon has it and sticks with it. Number 5 probably should be higher. I'm gonna be honest and say that this is the one that I haven't finished. It's came in late in the game, and I like to savor my episodes, and I'm not a binge watcher, and I want to be able to watch this and slowly enjoy it, and not be like, oh my god, I have a top 10 list I need to make. I have to get through all these episodes. It's What If on Disney Plus, but what I've seen so far has been brilliant, and it was brilliant in its first season. Um, but like because of how it's shot, it's different levels of brilliance, so different episodes work differently. It's very weird like that. So like one episode may kind of work, the next episode may be amazing, the next episode may not work for you at all. It's totally up to how you feel about it because each episode is taking a big swing. In the first season, I really loved the Doctor Strange episode. Um, and I'm waiting for something that emotionally grabs me like that this season. Number 4 is Beavis and Butthead on Paramount Plus. I do love this revival. I love that Mike Judge still has stuff to say and has somehow made these guys from the 90s relevant nowadays. They're now having to react to like YouTube videos instead of music videos. The update works. It's hilarious. I love these guys back in the 90s. I used to always kind of sneak. It's one of those things I wasn't supposed to be watching. Like, you can't watch that. That's garbage. It's not, that's, should be too young to watch that. I found ways of watching Beavis and Butthead. Uh, and I love Beavis and Butthead Do America. And I loved the movie they did 2 years ago, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. And I'm really grateful that this is here, and I hope Paramount Plus sticks with it forever and ever and never lets the boys go ever again. It may even lead to a Daria reboot. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if we should reboot Daria. I feel like Daria, it feels more 90s to me than Beavis and Butthead do, but we'll see. I don't know. Coming up number 3, these were tough. My top 3 was tough, guys. It just was. These were tough. Interchangeably, any of these shows could have been on top. One show's on top for a very specific reason. But my number 3 show is Harley Quinn. I know everybody's watching this. It didn't need to be on top. You're already watching this show on Max. I could have put this on top and you guys could have all just applauded me and been like, oh my God, we have the same taste. I love this show. I love where they went with it. I love Bane. Bane's search for the ultimate spaghetti maker was the best thing about this season, and I felt Bane is the standout character of like every season for me, and I'm so disappointed that it's Kite Man that's getting the spinoff, because while I think losing Bane from the show would be sad, they clearly know how to write for Bane. I don't know that they know how to write for Kite Man. We'll find out, but I love Harley Quinn, and I love what they did this season, so it's up on top. Please keep renewing this show. James Gunn has made a commitment and said that Harley Quinn's going to stay, but I hope it's for a while. Number 2 on the list, my runner-up, is a show you're probably not watching and didn't even know existed, but it's 10-Year-Old Tom on Max. This show cracks me up. I actually thought the show had been canceled, and then the second season popped up in like June, and I was like, oh my God, they made a second season to the show. I was so happy. The first season was so on point. This has so much commentary, so much social commentary, so many just bizarre little conversations. It's funny how everything always sort of ends up falling and becoming Tom's fault when you see that so many other things are like needed to happen for it to get to that point, and how one little thing, it's like pulling at a thread and then like the whole thing falls apart. If you're not watching 10-Year-Old Tom, please do. Please at least check it out. If you like the other shows on this list and you think that my thoughts are on the same wavelength as yours, this is definitely a show you should be watching. So what was my number 1? It's a farewell, and it's my heartfelt farewell was to decide to make 2023 the year of Archer, which went out with a bang, most recently finishing off with its slightly longer finale that they released a little bit before Christmas, which really nicely tied up the series with a nice little bow. They brought back many other characters that we had interactions with over the years, nods to just so many other plot lines throughout the course of the run of the show. I had already thought it was on a strong season. It's funny how the show has survived the loss of 2 major characters due to the loss of 2 voice actors, one of whom simply just lost his voice. The other one is rest in peace. But Archer has survived, and no, they did not bring Jeffrey Tambor back, so you don't have to worry about that. But people like Christian Slater came back for the final episode, and it just made me happy and sad. I was feeling happy and sad at the same time to see it go, but happy that it went out on a high note. So my number one show of 2023 for best animated TV series is Archer. All of these shows, all of these shows that I've mentioned, including my honorable mentions, have audio description. The only caveat being South Park only has audio description for the Paramount Plus specials. However, it does have some audio description. So I have stayed true to who I am as a blind film critic who talks about audio description. So you can watch any of these shows and enjoy them with audio description. Yes, season 14. Not all seasons of Archer have audio description, I should say that. But the later seasons do, and season 14 did. Anyway, that's it for me today. I will be back tomorrow with another top best of list. Until then, see you guys on the other side.